All right, Nick. Here we go. It's another day at the office, is what we're going to call it. Some days you're the hammer. Some days you're the nail. Chat's going to be all over you about the score, which maybe we shouldn't put it in there, to be honest. I mean, it might be best that we leave it blank. What's some other analogies we could use? Some days you're the windshield. Some days you're the bug. That's all I got.
Yeah. Fun night.
We're only down a touchdown. Quick little pick six right here at PAT, and we'll be right back in it.
I mean, we did score 11 unanswered yesterday.
Right. You never know. You never know.
It can trace Big League Jacob and Craig. I mean, we did this after all 162 games. Who's Big League and who?
Yeah.
You know what though?
Not a rivalry.
Next person that complains about the score bug, they can come and run singular for me.
Well, let me be very clear. I don't think anyone complained. I was just trying to get ahead of it.
No, I'm kidding.
Maybe that'll be if the Reds are able to what we'll call be successful. Maybe that'll be the next step in the cog of we've made it.
Okay.
Like if we've made it, it's where we just turn on everything and we just talk into the microphone and then we're just done. Now, I don't think I'm going to be honest. Let's just get into the nuts of it because we don't need to talk about a baseball game right now. When we first started Chatterbox, I didn't think that there would ever be a chance in ever that we would do any kind of broadcast or any kind of technical things or whatever, anything else, if I wasn't at least somewhat semi-involved. We have another stream going on live right now. What, we got to run?
Ellie smoked a single.
Oh, nice.
Lead off the inning.
It's good to know. I'll tell you what, if the Reds score 3 runs, I'll turn the game on.
Come join us for Chatterbox Reds Live. Trace isn't even watching the game. The analysis you can't get anywhere else.
But it does look like, yeah, exactly. It does look like there's another stream going on at the same time that is actually working. So there's that. But also, we're doing like 4 football games this weekend, and I'm not slated to do any of them. And that's I didn't think that was ever going to happen. So you never know, Nick. Is what I'm getting at is you never do know. There might be a time where you don't even have to do the podcast. Although I will openly admit I don't know if Nick has the power to give jurisdiction over to someone else.
No,
that's the real hard part. If we're being honest.
I don't know if I ever did do like a show where I didn't have to do anything. I don't know if I would like know what to do because I'd be so fidgety. Like I have to be doing something.
Yeah. Well, you just read the chat. That's what you do, which isn't always the best. But most nights,
that's healthy.
Most nights, not too bad. Tonight's a night where I got to be honest. You guys are absolute. I mean, when it gets to nut cutting time. OGs, Nutcutter Nation, whatever you want to call it. If you're spending your night with us tonight, you are one of those. But how many else we got, Nick?
Well, they got 2 now.
Damn.
They just doubled up steer.
Was it a 5-4-3, 6-4-3, 4-6-3?
5-4-3.
5-4-3. All right. The other stream, Alex, is members only right now, I believe.
But that's not going to be the case during the season. It's just they're doing a test run.
Right. Test run tonight, making sure they can kind of get their wits about them. And then they will not be members only tonight. Or not be members only, obviously, during the season. But there will be some members only content. Hopefully coming soon. Frank said he's watching good baseball. It's the Little League World Series. I've not watched any of the Little League World Series. I don't know why. That's weird. It's weird. I usually will watch a game or two of that, but
Can you bet on that?
no, Nick, you degenerate. I bet you actually can. Sadly enough, I bet you actually can. Chat. I guess I'll ask Frank. Is there like a stud team? Is there one team that's just way better than everybody, or we got like an even race this year? There's usually like one team that's just got like five players that look like they're 16 years old, and they're all like good 16-year-old players. They just happen to be 12.
Looks like you can only bet overseas.
You can only bet the international teams?
No, you can only bet from overseas books. Kind of like the presidential election. Like you can't bet that in the United States. Seems like that's probably a good idea.
Are you sure that you can't bet that in another state? Because I think that Ohio made it to where you can't bet on, what did they call it? They called it like, I don't know. I don't know what the right phrase is, but they made it to where you don't bet on non-sporting events you can't bet on.
I'm assuming not. I just Googled it. I don't think it would have. I would assume if it was anywhere in the country, it would have. But I was joking. I'm not seriously going to bet on the Little League World Series. Unless there's good value.
I knew it. I mean, let's be honest. If you're watching some Little League baseball and they're 12 years old, Nick, the tide's turning. You can start to see some watery eyes, some crying kids. Yeah. You're like, hey, this is my time to get in. This is the live bet of the century. Let's do it now. All right. Is this game over yet? It's got to be close.
It literally, you asked and you just received.
Okay. All right, folks. Let's do what we'll call a baseball show. You know, because that's what we're here for.
I think I can speak for all of Reds country. Joey Votto, thank you.
High drive, left center field, racing back to the Laurent Bourgeois. The Reds are National League Central Division champions. In the air, left center field. Did he? He did! Reds win! Line to the right field. Genius, the first run ever with 4 home runs in a game. Can you believe it? In the air, down the right field line. Does it have a chance? The Reds have won on a 3-run home run on opening day by Ramon Hernandez. A strike away and out away is Homer Bailey. Ground ball to third. Frazier gloves. Throw to first, and Homer Bailey, for the second time in his major league career, has tossed a no-hitter. Oh, gosh. Oh, my God. Are you kidding me? Holy Moses, the second player in major league history to hit 7 home runs in the first 10 games. In the air, and the Reds win. What a dream beginning to the career of Jay Bruce.
All right, Nick, welcome into a Chatterbox Reds losing edition. Blank tonight, 7-0 in overseas terms. They would say 7-0. And I got to be honest, I do think watching soccer at times feels like you're watching paint dry. This game very much resembled that to a certain extent. There were some exciting moments we'll get into, I'm sure. There's going to be people that are outraged about Huelve Marte, maybe Espinal. I'm sure we'll discuss that whole weird kind of sequence of events that happened in the 5th inning. And let's just face the facts. The Reds are in a tough spot. And we just have to get to a point, Nick, where I think we have to find the silver lining. If we can find those on a nightly basis, but also talk about the realities heading into 2025, maybe they'll get hot. Maybe. But before we do the box score recap, anything that you got to add or you want to do before we jump into the usual?
I got nothing.
All right, well, you know the drill. It's the box score recap presented by Nick Kirby.
All right, Reds taking on the Pirates, first of 4 at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. Nick Lodolo up against Paul Skenes. Home plate umpire Larry Vanover had one of the more liberal strike zones that you will ever see, and both pitchers used it to their full advantage early in the game. No score going into the bottom of the 5th. Nick Lodolo had only allowed 2 base runners through the first 4 innings, but Lodolo started to lose his command in the 5th. Lodolo walked 2 batters and hit another batter, and the bases were loaded with 2 outs. Brian Reynolds then hit a ground ball up the middle that Ellie had to range a bit to get to. Ellie tried to get the runner out at second base, but the runner ran past second base trying to steal a run, and the runner was called safe at second base. Runner at the plate safe as well, obviously. Then Santiago Espinal, playing second base on Thursday night, threw the ball to Noelvi Marte at third base, but Marte appeared to get confused with the runners caught in between. He hesitated, and everyone got back to their base safe. And that play turned out to be pretty big because instead of getting out of the inning, only down 1-0, the Pirates would end up putting up 5 more runs. Lodolo hit the next batter. His day was done. Jacob Junis came in. He gave up back-to-back hits, and it was a 6-0 game just like that. And that would be more than enough for Paul Skenes. He dominated the Reds once again. Skenes allowed just 2 hits and 1 walk over 6 shutout innings with 9 strikeouts. Yasmani Grandal hit a solo bomb off Jacob Junis in the bottom of the 6th to make it 7-0. And that would be your final score. Reds fall to 62 and 66 on the season.
All right, we got a deep drive of the day, and we know it wasn't in the big leagues because they got blanked. But Ethan O'Donnell hit his 7th home run of the season for Dayton, the old Dragons. They got a little bit of a squad, you know. If anything, that might be what I do here soon. I might drive up to Dayton to make myself feel better about this organization. O'Donnell, he was the Reds' 6th-round pick in 2023 out of Virginia, for those that don't know. He also entered Thursday hitting .353 with 12 extra base hits over his last 21 games. So shout out to Ethan O'Donnell. Not only did he have a home run today, but he's had a really, really, really good season so far. DSC, they are a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. And thank you to John and his team, as always, for supporting us and this show. And hopefully here soon, in the near, not too distant future, we're going to have just one hell of a run in the sun, you know, with the deep drives of the day and DSC. And there's been some sour moments, obviously, this season with the deep drive of the day. And tonight, maybe not as big as the one the other night when nobody was able to hit a home run. But shout out to Ethan O'Donnell. We'll get into Reds and MILB here in a little bit. Nick, you got a healthy rundown today. You got a healthy rundown. I'm sure we're going to run through them lickety-split. We'll see how long we take on each topic. But Larry Vanover, get us started.
Yeah, I mean, you have to start there, not using it as an excuse because he was equally terrible for both sides. But it's really hard to be critical of the Reds' offense on this night when you're facing Paul Skenes and you have that kind of strike zone. You're just not going to do anything. Now, there's plenty of criticism to go around on the Reds. I don't really think it's with the offense. It was just one of the most atrocious strike zones I've ever seen. And it's just incredible that Major League Baseball continues to run this out there. And again, both pitchers took advantage of it early. But just what are we doing here? Like, what is this?
It's going to get fixed soon, Nick. It's going to get fixed soon. ABS is on the way. And I understand the sentiments that you're making. Do I think it matters? Yes, I do think it matters. I'm not trying to downplay the significance of what a home plate umpire can do in a game, in the impact that they make. Am I gonna sit here and charge Larry Vanover as the main culprit as to why this offense continues to struggle against good pitching at times? I'm not, but I understand the sentiment that you're making. We tune in to watch baseball, to see the players. We tune in to hopefully at some point watch offense. And the one thing that I'll say about it, which I don't really want to get into a game-specific thing with Vanover, but in general, Nick, if you're going to be an umpire this day and age, I'd prefer you to err on the side of being kind of pro hitter. It's already hard enough to hit. It just is. Like, And I'm not trying to crush Major League Baseball and say it's boring or anything like that, because I still enjoy the game. I think that the pitch clock has significantly made it much more consumable for many people, and I think that's great. What makes it more consumable for the vast majority of us from an enjoyment standpoint is seeing players have success at the plate, even if it's on both sides of the ball. Like last night, it was an enjoyable game. 11 to whatever, 7 or whatever it was. Yeah, it took longer. But I think at the end of the night, we all were like, well, that was kind of fun. Am I suggesting that it needs to be 11-7 every game? Of course I'm not. But pitchers are so far ahead of hitters from 10 years ago to now. The progression of pitchers has gotten so much better than the hitters have gotten that it's getting close, or it's borderline close, Nick, to where they might have to make an adjustment in some capacity. They've already semi-done it with the anti-shift, right? Whether they were juicing baseballs or not at certain times, I'm not sure. I'm not going to get into that conspiracy theory. But overall, Major League Baseball has an issue with Major League hitters having success. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look up and down Major League Baseball, and their averages as a whole are significantly down. I don't need the home plate umpire making it worse, is what I would say. And that's my whole point about Larry Vanover and the ABS system in general. You know, if you're not going to move the mound back, if you're not going to make the strike zone smaller, then by God, let's not miss the calls where they're supposed to be called a ball. End of discussion on that for Larry Vanover for me.
Yeah, I think you make a great point about if you're going to be wrong, don't be wrong this way, where there's just no chance of offense happening. It's not an enjoyable product at all when you have that. Paul Skenes and Nick Lodolo both are good enough to where they don't need a outrageous strike zone. So, yeah, but you have to start there on the game, because that was kind of what made the game what it was, I think, through the first 5 innings. And then you get into the fifth, and that's where the Reds completely melted down.
All right, jumping into the fifth inning. Listen, and again, I can't remember everything on the fifth, but I do know that the inning starts off with an out. A couple guys get on. Lodolo walks a couple guys, hits a guy, gets himself in trouble. You get a ground ball up the middle. And I rewound this play, and I watched this play out, Nick, like probably 5-6 times because I was just trying to think of what each person was thinking about in their respective situations, right? So you have the ground ball at the middle. Ellie's trying to make the out at second base, and that seems obvious. Everybody would probably agree. Like, that's your best chance of getting an out. Go for it. He flips the ball to Espinal. Espinal's kind of momentum takes him to where he's kind of falling over. I wouldn't say that it was a really negative thing either. It's just part of the game. He catches the ball. He falls over. Umpire calls the runner safe. And you know what? Before I go into a rant about the Reds' incompetency, I do want to say that it was a smart play by Pittsburgh. You know, like, that's the right play. You run through the base, get there as fast as you can, make sure you're safe so you can get a run to score, if nothing else, right? And then from there, who cares what happens? So that was an excellent job by Pittsburgh. Espinal, in a perfect world, right, Nick, in my opinion, he realizes that there's a guy at third base, but I don't know if he had enough time personally to be able to kind of know that and also still be able to throw out the guy at third base. So let me paint a picture. Let's say, for instance, the guy at third base would have rounded third base and just ran home, right? He didn't stop, just like the guy at second didn't stop. Espinal wouldn't have had a chance to throw him out at home. So Espinal, in my mind, was just trying to make sure that he was getting the guy that he knew he could get out, so he threw the ball to third base. And then from there, I just don't think Marte, and unfortunately this is how baseball goes, everyone's going to try to crush all these guys. I'm going to openly say, and I'm going to get killed for it, that I can rationalize and I can reason as to why both guys did what they did. And unfortunately, it just happened the way it happened. It was a weird baseball play. It probably happens 1 out of every 50,000 plays that these guys attempt. The Marte clearly just kind of froze for a half a second. He should have thrown the ball right back to Espinal. He checked third base, though, to be clear. Last thing I'm going to say. Somewhere in the on X asking why he checked third base. he wanted to make sure the guy wasn't just going to sprint home, because if he sprints home, he throws the ball to second base, he still looks like an idiot because he let the run score. But he took too long to give the ball back to Espinal. And you know what? Like, I would have loved for him to make the play, Nick, but he just didn't make it. I don't know what else to say. Marte needs to be better. If you want me to say that to make yourself feel better, I'll just openly admit, maybe I'm soft for saying this. I understand what happened on all accounts, and I don't think it was egregiously bad outside of Marte freezing up, and that happens sometimes. You're human. Simple as that.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, if you're gonna do anything, you want to make sure that runner doesn't score. Like, it would, if you had to choose between the runner scoring or getting the out, I mean, you're gonna take not getting an out and not letting the run score. I mean, I think Espinal being on the ground is probably what messed the whole play up. Like, if he hadn't fallen down, he probably would have known to chase the runner down, and then it's a totally different play, and it just put Marte in kind of a weird spot, and he hesitated for a second, and that second, the runner was able to get back, and the guy on third base didn't move. He didn't screw up. He was smart on third base, and he kind of were stuck, and just was an unfortunate thing, because obviously that happens. It's a 1-0 game. Maybe the Reds lose 1-0, but it would have been a totally different game. Pittsburgh's bullpen has not been pitching well at all, so you would have still had, I think, a good chance in this game if you would have got that out. But you know, like, Nick Lodolo has to also be better. Like, you got to pick. You know, this is a situation where I think both guys. There just hasn't been enough of this maybe all year, Trace, where players have picked up their teammates. I mean,
yeah, that's it.
One guy makes a mistake and you could stop it. Nick Lodolo could go out and make a great pitch. There's 2 outs in the inning. He needs one more out and pick up Marte. And we're not really even probably talking about Marte, especially if the Reds come back.
No. And if Marte makes a good play to your point, he picks up Lodolo a little bit right there.
Nick Lodolo had a great day.
Yeah, Nick Lodolo had a great day. So it's just like it goes hand in hand. And it's kind of like what we were talking about yesterday where, you know, based off of the pitch sequences on certain guys, they had a great outing or they didn't have a good outing based off what the hitter did and whether or not the hitter executed what they were trying to do or not trying to do. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat the Junis situation. I'm sure he might be on the back half of the rundown. I don't want to get too far into it. We'll talk about Junis in a minute. We'll do game time here. Game time. If you want to do Nick Lodolo, you want to do Nick Lodolo? You can do Nick Lodolo. I didn't want to rush past Nick Lodolo. I'm sorry. I don't know what else there is to add to Nick Lodolo. I thought he had a good outing. Obviously was able to get the swing and miss. I think the last time he threw, we were like, you know, for whatever reason, he's not capable of kind of getting those swings and misses that he has been able to get in the past. Tonight he got some swings and misses, at least for striking guys out. But, you know, his stat line is not indicative of what he actually did tonight. But he did, I want to be very clear, he did put himself in that situation in the 5th inning. Like, that whole 5th inning, a lot of that had to do with what he did. And I feel like that kind of didn't get eloquently stated in the broadcast tonight. I felt like the broadcast was like, oh, what a great outing by Nick Lodolo. And it's like, hey, man, I'm not disagreeing, but I also know he's got 3 guys on base that are kind of his guys, with all due respect. And then all of a sudden, Junis obviously gives up a ball off the wall, and you're like, well, the stat line looks pretty terrible now. It's just weird that if Junis gets the out, we're probably sitting here talking about how great he did, and since he didn't, we're going to say that he didn't throw the ball that well. I'm going to meet everyone in the middle, and I'm going to say he was excellent, but excellent doesn't matter if you kind of lay an egg there as you exit the game. And he laid an egg exiting the game. Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, the first 2 walks, I mean, in that inning, like, it was really hard to walk back.
Terrible.
Like, you had to really try. It's hard to really know. I mean, like, Lodolo was obviously great before then, but how much of it was the umpire versus Lodolo? It looks like I'm trying to
walking
look up
bad
here.
Hitters too. Well, I mean, walking bad hitters. Like,
there's not very many good.
Well, I know, but I'm saying like these guys are exceptionally bad.
Yeah. No. The bottom of the Pirates lineup is. You think the bottom of the Reds lineup's bad? Look at some of those guys' numbers. But Mark Sheldon broke it down with Lodolo. His curveball hasn't had as much horizontal break. Looks like it still was down today. Before the IL, it had 10.1 inches of horizontal break. After the IL, it's down to 10.3. Today, it's 11. Doesn't look like StatCast gives me like a 11 point whatever, but that's still obviously down because he was above 12 before. So maybe a little bit better, but he's still not getting the curveball's still not being executed as consistent as it is. And if you look at like Statcast lays out like your max and your minimum, most of his pitches are like the max is 19, the minimum is 12 and whatnot. The max is 18 and the minimum is 6. So like that to me, and I'm not a big expert on all this thing, makes me think that there was just not consistency in how much he was able to get that curveball to really, snap.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I just I don't want to do the 2025 talk too much tonight. It's just like you start to try to think of who are we relying on? What guys do we want to 100% rely on? And Lodolo is a tough one. Because if anything, knock on wood here, Nick, I would just say like from a health standpoint, it's been pretty good this year. Like it's been solid. And if anything, I will openly admit that if you told me that Nick Lodolo might struggle a little bit this year at times, might not be look himself, you might question him. But he's going to be there for most of the season. He's going to be healthy. Or you can get a guy that looks dominant. Maybe he's a Cy Young, but he's there half the year, or maybe a quarter of the year, and you're wishing that you had more of it. I'm going to take the health, and that's what it's been. So I can't overly complain too much, but I am hopeful that we get more and more of a guy that looks like he's developing similar to what Hunter Green was capable of doing this year. Hunter Green was exceptional, so I'm not saying he needs to be that good, but I'm hoping that Nick Lodolo can kind of transition closer to what Hunter was capable of doing than not. So moving into the back half of the rundown here, we'll get into Junis in just a second. Game time. If you're looking to go to the ball yard, I can tell you right now, you can get some very affordable tickets. Very, very affordable tickets. Perhaps you're looking to go to other places. And you know what? If you need a ticket, you can download the Game Time app today and use the code CINCY, CINCY, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. And you will realize very quickly, if you download the Game Time app, that it's a great interface. It's very, very, very user-friendly. You're going to know kind of what you're doing inside the app. There's a search function right there. You can search for literally any type of concert, sporting event, you name it. You can find it on the Game Time app. Download it today. Use the code CINCY, CINCY. Get $20 off your first purchase. Download the app today if you haven't already, and just have it there. Have it waiting. Put it there on the phone. Just have it there in case you need it. 988. 988. 988. I'm going to openly say something. This is going to be a tough month for your boy here, okay? There's two things that I despise. One is bad baseball, what some would call meaningless baseball, and maybe more importantly, political ads and politics in general. And when I tell you that this is a brutal stretch for your boy here, it's a brutal stretch. So if you're going through a brutal stretch at times, please remember, text or call 988. Nick, as I always say, life is better with you in it. And it genuinely is. So find a way, persevere, get help if you need it. Mantherapy.org, as always, as well. All right. We have Smith and Rosario on here. I know I'm going to say something about Junis because he's not on the rundown, and that's fine. I understand why. I'm going to have to go back and watch this before I get absolutely crushed by someone else. This is just my eyes. I actually thought the pitch that De La Cruz hit, I think it was his first extra base hit, of course. Like, it was his second extra base hit of the game, but it was his first extra base hit in a Pirates uniform tonight. I actually thought that the pitch was executed relatively well. I do. I went back and I looked where they wanted the ball. What pitch was it? It was an up and in fastball, and he kind of threw an up and in fastball. And I know that he got absolutely ripped and shelled, and Cruz came in after De La Cruz, and he got a hit. So Junis isn't out of the woods. But I just will admit that I thought that he executed the pitch he was trying to execute when the ball got, driven to the wall. Not that we're here for participation trophies, but I just want to openly say that I don't know if Junis' outing was as bad as it's going to get made out to be, largely based off the fact that he came into a situation that was the bases were loaded. And anytime you give up an extra base hit with the bases loaded and you just came into a game, it's gonna be pretty sour for you. So part of being a reliever, though, Nick. Part of being a reliever. I don't know if you have anything else you have to add from Junis' perspective. We can jump into Smith and Rosario.
Yeah, I think Junis has overall been fine. I mean, but kind of when he came in the game, I mean, tough spot. Gave a couple hits, and I don't know. I don't really think he's the kind of reliever you want coming in those kind of spots.
No.
But you get why David Bell went to him, which is kind of where that game was going. And I think David Bell was also probably hoping Lodolo could get out of that inning and Junis could start a fresh inning in the sixth. But it just, again, goes back to setting everyone up, and picking each other up. Lodolo gets that last out. Junis starts a fresh inning. Junis probably has a better night.
David Bell's is in a really weird spot right now because I think that there's definitely a line in the sand here that this team has to play to a certain level. Whether it matters or it doesn't matter, it is relatively irrelevant when it comes to the playoffs, right? The season as a whole isn't going to change anything, whether they play just above 500 baseball or if they play 10 games below 500 baseball. But I think it does for him. So it's going to be interesting to see how he manages these games. Because I think if they were to really, really struggle down the stretch, I think it puts this front office and it puts the ownership group in a really tough spot heading into next season with David Bell. So we'll see how he decides to manage. But tonight it did feel like he was in a spot where he knew that, hey, this offense is struggling. And not to steal a phrase, but let's not try to bring in all the top guns tonight to try to save something that might be irrelevant. And Junis just happened to be a guy that wasn't capable of getting the outs. So simple as that.
I think it kind of goes right into the next guys. I do think that the pickup of Dominic Smith. I mean, I think it's the kind of move that I think the Reds realize where they're at, that they have a very, very slim chance of making the playoffs. But I do think when you add Dom Smith, I do think that they are trying to win, or that's not the right word. They do value trying to play well to the end of the season. It's not like, let's just call up everyone we want. Let's throw Reese Hines back out there. I know he's been struggling mightily at AAA, or, fill out the neck, Joey Weimer, go down the list. I think that they're trying to balance playing Noelve Marte and also trying to win, to try to set up some sort of culture for guys like Ellie De La Cruz and, go down the list. So that was my biggest takeaway from them adding Dom Smith with Fraley going on the IL was that, all right, I mean, I think the Reds they're trying to show at least somewhat that they do have some sort of value and at least trying to finish the season strong.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add on the Rosario and Smith. Dom Smith, I was I'm going to say shocked, but that's just I don't know. You're never going to win. You're never going to win the beauty pageant, probably shopping at TJ Maxx, and it feels like that's what we've been doing lately, and that's fine. You can find some nice things at TJ Maxx. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to TJ Maxx in any stretch of the imagination, but let's face it, this is where we're at right now. We're going around to garage sales, and we're trying to scoop up some items that we think are maybe a little bit better in value than what people are selling them for. But at the end of the day, they're still just clutter, stuff that you really probably don't need, stuff that really isn't going to make your life all that better. Might make you feel good for half a day when you get something at a garage sale. But then typically after a while, it's just more junk that sits around your house. I'm not trying to say that Dom Smith and Rosario are completely worthless, but I'll be frank. I don't have a whole lot that I get excited about when I see these moves right now because I just don't think that they're not meaningful. and they don't have any impact on what really matters, and that is winning at the highest level, which is what we want as Reds fans. We want to see postseason baseball, and I hope I'm wrong, Nick. I'm not trying to kill Dom Smith. He just got here. Although I do think the Reds did him a disservice today. He looked like he had no arms when they put him out there for his Welcome to Reds Country release on Twitter today. Could have been a little bit better. I would have liked to have seen a better picture, but outside of that, we'll see how long Smith and Rosario hang around. I guess I'll if anything, it'll be like Obscure Reds. It'll give Obscure Reds some content here in the near future. Is my thought on it.
Yeah, I got to be completely honest. I explained why I think they did it. I would rather see Rhys Hines and Joey Wiemer sink or swim, but I also understand what they're trying to do, because I do think there is some value to, trying to teach some good habits, not letting this season just completely go off the rails.
It's off the rails though. Like, that's the thing. I don't.
There's different levels of being off the rails.
There is, but it's like I think that there's a fundamental, and I'm not saying I'm right in believing what I believe, and I don't even know what you believe with this regard. Like, I guess my thing is, I don't know if it matters. I really don't. Like, if they finish 2 games better than what they would have with Dom Smith or Rosario playing versus Rhys Hines or Wiemer or Blake Dunn or name whatever other AAA guy you want to name right now that probably isn't big league ready, but hey, we'll throw them out there because they're at least our internal guys that have a ceiling that we think might be able to help us down the road. I'd rather see that personally, like you said, and finish 5 games below what we would have finished if Rosario and Smith played, because at the end of the day, who gives a damn if you don't make it? It's like a freezing point of water is how I look at it. Once you get below freezing, you're frozen. It doesn't matter how much lower you go. It's the same content matter. It's the same structure, Make it as cold as you want. I don't care. It's frozen. I don't want to be frozen, to be clear. I'd like to get above the mark that allows us not to be that. But once we get below that, I have the opinion of I don't give a damn how cold it gets because we're already there. So you're not changing anything. So that's how I feel. Now, again, for those that are interested and excited they picked up Dom and Rosario, that's fine. I'm not here to rain on your parade. It just doesn't do it for me. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. We have minor league baseball, which is kind of like, I know this sounds stupid, Nick, but like we're getting closer and closer into the season where I'm going to start to get excited about the Dragons. Like I'm going to start to like really focus in on something I can like kind of lock in on and say, all right, this is actually like, for lack of a better word, this is something that's interesting and fun. Not trying to say the Reds aren't, but let's be honest. Reds MILB, which is going to be presented by you. The Dragons got a chance. They got a real chance, Nick.
Yeah, there's some pretty exciting stuff in Reds MILB. If you're so inclined to participate in that kind of stuff like I am, and yeah, things are going very well for the Dayton Dragons. We'll get to them in just a second. We'll start off with AAA. They lost 7-2 to Gwinnett in 10 innings. The Bats have lost 7 of 8, but none of that matters because the Bat season's over, and Rhett Lauder made his AAA debut, and it was spectacular. I put him next on the top on the rundown to kind of talk about him maybe a little bit more at length, but really impressive stuff from Rhett. 6 innings, 3 hits, no runs, no walks, 7 strikeouts. It looked about as impressive from at least what I was able to watch of it as it looked on as the stat line looks. Offense, not much. Blake Dunn, 0 for 5. Rhys Hines, 1 for 5. Did steal a base. Side note, the Bats were going up against Ian Anderson. If you remember that name, well, he shut down the Reds in the 2020 playoffs, and his career completely fell off the wagon after that. But he pitched well tonight, so shout out to him. Brent Suter made his rehab return. Got through a scoreless inning, 2 hits, just your classic Brent Suter line. 1 innings, 2 hits, no runs, no walks, no strikeouts. Tough night for Zach Maxwell. He walked 3 batters, and he gave up 2 runs. Double A, they are not final yet. They are down 3-0 to Mississippi. I'm just going to look it up just so I can make sure we have your Austin Hendrick update. And guess what? Got a hit tonight.
Good for
Got a
him.
hit. That's great to see. Tyler Callahan, my guy, he's on base 3 times. Love to see that. He's a guy that I think is maybe really going to start turning some heads, and a guy that may not be that far away from the big leagues coming back from injury. Love what he's doing. I think it's a 22-game on-base streak. You'll have to find out if that's accurate in the podcast tomorrow. But nonetheless, they're down 3-0 on the verge of their 79th loss. If they get to 84, which they're going to get to 84, they have like 20-something games left. That will be the most since they rejoined the Southern League in the 70s. So, tough times. But no, who's not having tough times, Trace, is the Dayton Dragons. Hector Rodriguez had a walk-off single. Dragons are now 17 games over 500. They've won 8 straight games, and they now have a 3.5-game lead for a second-half playoff spot. Cam Collier, 2 for 4. Hector Rodriguez, 2 for 5 with a double. As mentioned, our DSC Deep Drive of the Day, Ethan O'Donnell homer. He's been on fire of late, so great to see. And, if you're really bummed out of the Reds, go pay $10 Reds for a month for Reds MILB and watch the Dragons every night. They're a lot of fun. There's a lot of really good players, and they're exciting to see. The other team that's really excited to see is the Daytona Tortugas. They won 2-1. They scored 2 runs in the top of the 9th for a comeback win, started by back-to-back singles from Sammy Stafora and Ricardo Cabrera, their top 2 prospects for their comeback win. Tortugas have won 5 of 6, and they now have a 4.5-game lead for a second-half playoff spot. The Tortugas have been playing Jupiter. That's a team that's chasing them, and they've won every game this week. So they've literally, these are big games for them this week. But nonetheless, Sammy Stafora, Ricardo Cabrera, each 1 for 4. Peyton Stovall, I haven't mentioned him before. He was a 4th-round pick just this past draft out of Arkansas. Off to a really nice start, 3 for 7 with 2 stolen bases in his first 2 professional games. And then David Lowerty, pitcher, threw 3 perfect innings with 3 strikeouts. He's yet to allow a run in 9 innings since he got promoted to Daytona. 9 strikeouts, just 1 walk. He had a 2.76 ERA in over 42 innings with the ACL Reds. So a name to watch down there.
All right. Rhett Lauder was obviously on Reds MILB. Before we jump into him, though, I just want to say shout out to Elijah Bard with a super chat. Thank you very much for supporting the show. He says, it's tough when there's only 2 Reds hats in the breakdown. Hard season. We got to the bottom of the barrel once again. Yep. Hey, that's... It's funny how things can change in a week, That's the crazy thing about this whole weird phenomenon that we call fandom. It's a very, very, very crazy thing. That's why fan, I guess, is short of fanatic. That's what it's short for. So here we are. Rhett Lauder, I am very, very, very thankful that he has started to throw the ball better because I was a full-fledged believer in him. Not only when they drafted him, but I also thought when we got a chance to see him throw in the Futures game in Arizona to start the year, I really do believe this. I think that there are some guys that hide the ball better than others, or it just seems like it comes out of the hand a little bit cleaner than others. Rhett Lauder's one of those guys. He was throwing, Nick, and I kept looking up at the board like, that's only 92, and then it was like, that's only 93. I think it got up to 94 when we were there. And it just felt like it was significantly harder. And I don't know if it was just based off the swing feedback that I was watching. And let's face it, some of these guys that he's facing in the Futures game are much younger than he is and don't have nearly the experience. But for the most part, I was very, very encouraged. Got off to a slower start. Some were really, really, really concerned about him when he was in Chattanooga. Then he got hotter than a firecracker. First opportunity in AAA. Didn't disappoint, Nick. This is a guy now who, I don't know what your thoughts are, but is there any semblance of a chance that he gets maybe a start at the end of the season just to kind of get his feet wet, if anything else, to make it to where if he does, I'm just going to throw out the hypothetical, if he does have a very good winter and he does have a very good spring, then he breaks camp with the team. If you get him a start or 2 at the end of September here, it might not feel like this whole new phenomenon for the first time. And you break camp and maybe you're a little more comfortable than you would have been. And maybe that's stretching the truth a little bit, Nick. But I guess that's more or less a question to you. or your overall thoughts here on Rhett Lauder as he kind of starts to heat up here towards the end of the season?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I got to read back through the options rule because I think you can have a guy come up for a certain amount of days and it doesn't count as an option. So if that's the case, I think that would maybe make the Reds might try to manipulate that so they don't burn an option. Now, if Rhett Lauder needs that third option 3 years from now,
Yeah,
it's probably not going well, and I don't think there's any reason to believe that they should. But you also never know. You have to always, try to do your best to protect yourself for the future, so you're not stuck in, more difficult spots. But yeah, I mean, Rhett Lauder's been dominant his last like 7-8 starts. His ERA is like below 0.5 or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, him turning this season around, I mean, that's one of the it might be one of the top 5 developments in the entire organization. I don't think that's hyperbole. I really don't. I mean, obviously Ellie De La Cruz having a great year, Hunter Green having a great year. That's 1 and 2, but Lauder's not that far behind those two in terms of just how, his season this year and his turnaround, because he's such a huge part of this team. I think that Burns, it's obviously like he's the number 2 pick. Like, you have to almost expect that he's going to be great. Lauder, you should expect that he's going to be great, but there's a little bit of a slimmer margin of error for him than a guy like Burns with just the overall dominant talent that he has. So, Lauder pitching like this, I mean, that's huge. And if you feel like he can be a big piece in 2025, it helps everything else, because you can say, okay, we don't have to put any money into the starting rotation next year. We can put it all on. I love Anthony Santander. That's the guy I got the kick on right now. Or, maybe you make a trade to get Ryan Mountcastle. You need to go get a big outfield bat that can hit 20, 30 home runs at Great American Ballpark. Hell, maybe 40. Right. That's, I think, clearly what the Reds need. And, if you don't need the pitching's very expensive. Frankie Montas was $16 million. If you don't need pitching, it makes every other part of your roster construction a lot easier.
If you still believe in this front office, right, which I understand why some wouldn't, but if you still have a little bit of hope and desire and you believe that there's better things to come, I said during the draft show, and I still wholeheartedly believe this based off the decision that they made when they decided to draft Burns, is there was a fundamental decision that was made. Strategic decision that was made inside the Reds front office that they clearly felt like the one thing that they were incapable of doing was going into free agency and finding starting pitching that was actually going to make an impact or make a significant enough of a difference for this franchise to get over the proverbial hump. Whatever hump you want to consider that to be, whether you want to say that's their first postseason series win or whether you want to see that's the damn World Series. I don't care what you think it is. That's not the point. But they've decided that they were going to go all in from a draft capital perspective these last 2 seasons on relatively quick return investments on starting pitching. You draft a high-level starting pitcher that had a lot of success, an older guy in Rhett Lauder, and then you back it up the very next year and you go out and get, with the number 2 pick, with clearly what many said, a generational talent outfield bat. And let's face it, the outfield bat was the one thing that we have all around Cincinnati have desired to get. We want a power-hitting outfield bat because this team desperately feels like it needs it. And the front office decided, we're going to pass on that despite all the scrutiny we can get and go get a guy that might be a quick fix and might be up here like a Paul Skenes-esque. I'm not trying to compare him to Paul Skenes. I'm saying a Paul Skenes-esque rise to success in Major League Baseball. And Nick, let's face it, we've said this 1,000 times. You have to take risks as a front office in this organization. You got to bet on yourself somewhere. You can't just say, well, if we miss here and miss there, it's no big deal. We can cover it up with XYZ. There is no XYZ. All right? So point is, heading into this offseason, if Rhett Lauder proves this franchise or front office that he's going to be a guy that can consistently help them next year, then I am with you. They can take their eggs, take him out of the basket of maybe going and trying to find a mediocre at best starting pitcher because that's all they can afford in free agency, and putting it all into what we would call the offensive side of the baseball and saying, let's cross our fingers and hope the starting pitching can duplicate what they were capable of doing last year. Plus, we got 2 young guys that are going to come in and kind of help bolster that. But we need to go out and get some more bats. And if everything works out, Nick, like we said before, and all these other guys pick it up, whether it's CES, McLean, Marte, and we have a plethora of guys and we realize we wasted money because our offense is too good, I'm not going to complain. I'll openly say it. I'm not going to complain. I'm sick and tired, Nick, of watching what I would consider a very, very lousy lineup, and I don't want injuries to even be a remote concern. I want there to be 3 injuries, and we still feel like we have a good lineup. Maybe I'm asking too much.
Yeah, I don't think you are. I don't really think it's necessarily all that as difficult as it might sound to really, build yourself up some depth. I mean, I think if the Reds go out and added 2 offensive pieces, I mean, you could realistically go into next season and have CES, Marte, and Benson all penciled in to start the year in AAA. And like you could fill out a roster if you had 2 pieces.
Right.
And I don't want to get into too far into. I mean, I know Santander's on the dream list. We'll have plenty of time to discuss the rest of it. I'll tease. I got one interesting one that I've kind of thought about. I've been kind of thinking about this guy that might fit the Reds next year. Eugenio Suarez, third baseman. You hear me out.
I didn't say a word.
You could get him on a one. You could probably get him on a 1-year deal, short-term deal, which is what the Reds kind of need. A fill gap. Still playing defense at a high level, hitting okay. I mean, he's about league average, but I think that's the kind of guy that you add. You pair. He's not your premium signing. Let me be very, very clear on that. But you pair him with a guy like Santander or another big-time outfielder, and then you could shift some of those guys down to where they start the year at AAA, but we know they won't all start the year at AAA because someone will get hurt and they'll have a spot.
Okay, the one thing I only want to say back to that is we do realize, Nick, that when guys get older, they usually don't get they don't become any better, right? Like that happens. There's a cliff here.
I agree. That's why 1-year deal. I mean, you're not looking for a 5-year deal out of him.
Well, I definitely don't. I'm just saying.
Look at the third base market, though, and you're going to find there's not a whole lot of options.
That's fair. I've not looked at the market nearly as closely as you have. I got to go and I'll start digging through that here soon, and I'll come up with a wish list. But I got to be honest, I didn't know Suarez was high on the list. If that's the case, then you've made me more depressed. And if you're depressed, 988 is a good resource, as always. Let's do the who, what, when, where, and why before you bring this show down even farther. I'm trying to think of 2025, get excited, Chad, about offense and baseball, and let's get going. And here we come with a just retread tire, just like you see them all over 75, just shredded up all over the highway, just a retread after retread. It's like, why are all these tires out here, Dad? Well, they're because the truckers are too damn lazy to go get new tires. They want retreads. So instead of them having new tires, we got shredded rubber all over the place. Anyways, shout outs Eugenio. Maybe he'll come in and be a superstar. And it'll be another Gym Day marathon. I can't wait for it. But nonetheless, who, what, when, where, and why, Nick?
All right, Reds taking on the Pirates. Another lovely 6:40 start time. Apple TV Plus tomorrow. The Apple TV executive said, you know what? We need Reds Pirates tomorrow. They were maybe hoping they would get Paul Skenes, Nick Lodolo, but nope, they've got Bailey Falter, Andrew Abbott. Falter, last start, did go up 8 hits, but only 2 runs against the Mariners. Reds faced him twice within like 6 days of each other earlier this year. You might remember the first start didn't go the Reds' way. 7 innings, 2 runs, but the Reds had 7 hits, and they had a ton of hard hit balls. Well, the next time out at Great America Ballpark, they crushed him. He only got through 4 innings, gave up 4 earned runs. His career, 6.67 ERA in 7 games against the Reds. He's a lefty, so I would expect that you'll see Ahmed Rosario back in the lineup. The Reds' new lineup versus left-handed pitching. Steer, Stevenson, Friedel, and Espinal have all homered against Bailey Falter. And then Andrew Abbott, he has not faced the Pirates this year, believe it or not. Last year in 2 starts, had a 3.60 ERA. But Trace, just one last thing, I guess, question for you. I mean, Andrew Abbott, kind of how he finishes this year. That's also one, I think, the bigger developments is how can he kind of, push through the fatigue, the dog days of August into September. Obviously, last year didn't end strong for him. Him finishing strong would, I think, be a pretty big boost of confidence for the pitching.
It definitely will be a talking point heading into the end of next season. If the Reds are in some semblance of a race and Abbott is pitching, if he has a bad outing or two at the end of next season, he's not capable at the end of this year of finishing what we would deem as relatively strong, it's going to be a talking point. And I don't know if that will ultimately impact him heading into next season or not. But if you want to shed that kind of narrative that you're going to run out of gas at the end of the season, then I think Andrew Abbott's going to find himself in a position this year to be able to kind of make sure that that's not a talking point heading into the end of next season. Because let's also face it, like, I hate to be this way, but pitching in the middle of August, in the beginning of September or the middle of September, that's late right now. But to get to where we ultimately want to go to, Nick, that's not really all that late. I mean, you're going to have to pitch much, much deeper than the middle of August and the middle of September. I don't know. I know it's been a while, but, October baseball is a real thing. And at some point, hopefully we can witness that in Cincinnati. And I'm hopeful that next season he can at least do well enough this year where that's not a talking point. So maybe it's all semantics. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe he won't care if the newspapers and, well, I don't know, the newspapers still exist. That's true. But regardless, podcasts and all the other mediums that cover the sport aren't talking about whether or not Andrew Abbott's going to be able to make it through the end of the year or not. He can kind of shed that narrative at the end of the season. We'll see if he's capable of doing it.
Yeah, it's been a weird run from him lately where he's had like really good start, bad start, really good start, bad start. It feels like it's just been, you don't really know what you're going to get from him of late. And I mean, I guess that's better than last year where it was just, they were all bad. So hopefully he could, kind of overcome it. This has just been kind of an inconsistent stretch, but him finishing the year strong, certainly something that I think is important to watch.
All right. Listen, I don't pat ourselves on the back a whole lot, right? I don't really say a whole lot. I just want to say the chat, excellent tonight, unbelievable. You guys are you're the real nutcutters of Nutcutter Nation. Being in here on a night like tonight is not easy. Reds blank 7-0 against the Pittsburgh Pirates, the lowly Pittsburgh Pirates, if we're being completely frank. And sometimes when I say that, I cringe a little bit because I know that we're really kind of the same franchise as of late. We do have the history. We certainly have some of the greatest teams of all time, but let's also face the facts that Pittsburgh Pirates and Cincinnati Reds are neck and neck of disappointing baseball from plenty of years. At least during my lifetime. So thank you to all of you who support us each and every single day. I just most want to say that, we're doing our best. We're doing our best. Hopefully you enjoy the shows. Nick, you did an unbelievable job tonight. We did 58 minutes on a 7-0 game
Unreal.
Against the Pittsburgh Pirates on August 22nd when we're damn near dead last. I don't know if they're all going to be like this. I'm not sure what the middle of September is going to hold for your boy Nick and I, but I will say we're going to push through. These are the dog days. We're fighting. We're scratching. We're clawing. We appreciate that you appreciate us, and we just thank you one last time. If you've not already, download the podcast, listen to it. Nick's going to work hard on that tonight. God knows who's going to listen to it, and hopefully it's you. Like the stream. And I know you might not believe this, but we'll be back better than ever tomorrow, baby. Go Reds. And enjoy your night. See you, everybody.